Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and I'm coming to you guys with a draft analysis video for UBC Season 5. Season 5 will be the fourth consecutive season that we've been in the UBC. We started out in Season 2, and we were able to come up with a championship in Season 2, which was pretty remarkable, being our first season in the league. Season 3, we were the runner-up. We unfortunately lost to Turkey. He was able to take the championship that season. And then last season, we unfortunately didn't make the playoffs. We actually finished with a 6-6 record, and we were off to a good start. We were 5-2, and then we went on a 4-game losing streak, and only wound up with a 6-6 record because our final opponent ended up forfeiting. So, really looking to have a bounce back season this season, and it's definitely going to be a challenge because the UBC has added more talent than ever. We've added a lot of folks from NPL, from PPL, from GPA, from all over the place. And in total, there are 22 teams this season, so that's really remarkable. Just to tell you a little bit about the format, we are going to be splitting up those 22 teams into two different conferences. So they're going to be 11 teams in each conference, and then each conference is going to have its own draft pool. So we only have to compete with 10 other teams rather than 21 other teams, which is pretty nice. It's going to make it a lot more manageable to get the Pokemon that we want. The drafting format is point style, so you have a budget of, I think we said 120 points, and you can spend them on anywhere between 8 and 12 Pokemon. You don't need to draft a Mega. You get one Z-Move user, which can use basically any Z-Move except for the Omni Boost move, so like Happy Hour, Celebrate, Conversion, things like that. You are not allowed to use Z-Moves with. And we ended up in the Team Aether conference. So we have Team Aether and Team Skull, which is pretty cool. And I got the 6th pick overall, which was smack dab in the middle. So we had 5 teams before us and 5 teams after us. So that was kind of neat. And for once, I actually didn't really have any draft plan going into this draft. All I really knew is that I wanted to use Weavile and Landorus if possible, just because I think those are both great Pokemon, and I seem to always have trouble prepping for them, and it really kind of bugs me. So if you can't beat them, I guess you need to assign them to your team. And so that's what we did with our first overall pick. We did get Meliodas, the Weavile. This thing is just awesome. It's been one of my favorite Pokemon for a long time because of its amazing speed stat, and it's got a very good attack stat as well, as you can see. Everybody kind of knows what Weavile does, you know, Knock Off, Pursuit, Icicle Crash, Ice Shard, etc. Really nice coverage with Poison Jab, Aerial Ace, Brick Break, Low Kick, Shadow Claw, etc., etc., X Scissor. So lots of really nice coverage options. Gets Swords Dance to be a setup sweeper potentially. But yeah, Weavile is just with its combination of dual stabs plus supplemented with the coverage that it has, just has so few switch-ins, and it's really, really awesome, and I'm really excited to use it. So I don't really have any plan in mind for Weavile in terms of like who I'm going to draft after it besides Landorus, like I mentioned. But what would be really nice was if I could draft a Pokemon that lures in Psychic types, and then has like U-Turn or Volt Switch or something like that. Because, you know, Pokemon like Latias, Slowbro, etc. Might want to come in on a Pokemon like, you know, some sort of fighting type, and then I can pivot out on them into Weavile and trap them, or just set up for a really big knockoff or something like that. So don't really have anything too hard in mind. I'm just gonna kind of wait to see what the draft gives me before I get too excited with my next picks. So with that said, I did want to get Mufasa, the landorus-t, with my next pick, because this thing is amazing, especially with the introduction of Z-moves, because you give this a Z-Crystal to combo with Earthquake or with Fly or with Stone Edge. You've got a very high-powered Titanic Rage, Supersonic Sky Strike, Continental Crush, and coming off of a base 145 attack stat, it's just very hard to switch into. This has great setup options, Swords Dance and Rock Polish. It even gets Calm Mind, which is really cool. Maybe we'll have to make use of that later on in the season. Gets Knock Off, U-Turn, Stealth Rock. Has everything that we need from a Pokemon that'll probably come every week. just because this could fill so many roles on the team, whether it's a Choice Scarf user or a defensive Mon with Intimidate, either Leftovers or Rocky Helmet or something like that. Makes it very useful, and yeah, really excited to be using this. Gives us a really useful ground immunity, which is something that I often struggle with. Ground types are just so threatening. Earthquake spam is so threatening. So anyway, so this is my second round pick, was Landorus-T. Now, the draft goes all the way back up to the top, starts the third round. I'm looking at Infernape with my next pick, because it sort of fills the role that I mentioned earlier. It's a Pokemon that invites in Psychic types and can very easily pivot out of them and into my Weavile. But that got picked one turn before me. Got taken, I believe, by Turkey. So Turkey's screwed me up again, just like he did in Season 3. And it's funny because he actually had Infernape in Season 3 as well, and that Pokemon just destroyed me on its own. But I wasn't too disappointed about Infernape being sniped, because I did have a pretty decent backup option, being Shadowfax my Cobalion. Cobalion has the same base speed as Infernape, which is pretty nice. It's a fighting type, just like Infernape, which is pretty nice. It actually doesn't have that much less attack or special attack than Infernape. So for Infernape, only has 104 attack and special attack, so coming in at 90 is not bad. And just like Infernape, Cobalion's got some high-powered moves like close combat, 120 base power. If you want to hit on the special side, you do have Focus Blast with the same base power, but a lot less accuracy, of course. That part is a given. And so yeah, just the fact that it has such high-powered moves really makes it pretty potent. This is another Pokemon with amazing setup options: Calm Mind, Double Dance, Hone Claws if you really need. Hone Claws plus Focus Blast is really funny to me, just to boost your accuracy by a stage, but I don't know if we're going to be seeing that very much. And then, last but not least, it does get Volt Switch. So it does lure in those Pokemon like I had mentioned. Pokemon like Starmie and Slowbro and Slowking are going to be able to switch in on this most of the time, but if I can Volt Switch and bring in something else to bop those Pokemon, aka Weavile, I'll be a really happy guy. And then Cobalion gets awesome support moves too, like Stealth Rock, Thunder Wave, etc. So I'm really happy to be having Cobalion on my team. If you watch GBA Season 7, you know that this thing put in a ton of work on the Detroit Steel Wings. Was the kill leader. I think it was the differential leader. If it wasn't, then it was like second place. I remember that Heatran from the Florida Gators did particularly well, but Cobalion is just a stud. And yeah, so I'm still kind of at the point in the draft where I'm just like taking what's available and seeing what's been dropping. And the funny thing about the 11-person draft is that there were a lot of Pokemon that either slipped to the later rounds or just weren't drafted at all. Things like Mega Lopunny and Mega Medicham and Mega Altaria all went undrafted in our conference, which is really wild. But in any case, the reason that I bring that up is because we actually had quite a steal in the 4th round here. As you guys can see, we're actually able to pick up Ozai the Victini. Ozai being Firelord Ozai from the Avatar series. Shout out to Chimpact. But Victini is amazing, and a lot of people are very familiar with Victini. If you watch leagues, and you know that Victini is always at the top of kill leaderboards, just because it has amazing coverage, and all of its coverage has really high base power. Starting out with the infamous V-Create all the way down here, 180 base power, which is just incredible. But then, it gets Bolt Strike, it gets Blue Flare, it gets, hundreds of, not literally hundreds, it gets dozens of options. I think I'm comfortable saying it gets like at least a dozen options in terms of coverage on both the physical and the special side, which is awesome. And it's got really balanced stats, so it can be used offensively, on the physical side or on the special side. And it gets U-Turn, which is really nice for luring in bulky water types, bulky fire types that might be trying to switch in on this thing. And we can pivot into something that can take advantage of those mons, which is quite nice. And yeah, it's even got good bulk stats, so you can run it defensively if you need, or run it with an assault vest if you want to be sort of in between bulky and offensive. Victini actually is like a really great check to Tapu Lele, funnily enough, but there's no Tapu Lele in this league, thankfully. That was banned. What else was banned? Magirna was banned. Nothing else too controversial. I guess like Mega Kangaskhan and Hoopa are banned. Some people were pushing to get those unbanned, but I think that was the right call. It came to a vote and was decided to leave those Pokemon out. But yeah, Victini, great value in round 4. It might end up being the all-star of the team, to be honest, just because of all the amazing moves that it has. Even his Final Gambit, which could be really funny. Because coming off a base 100 HP stat, that's really not bad. You can do up to 404 damage with it, so that's pretty nice. Alright, so now we are part of the way through the draft. We've gotten 4 Pokemon that are all pretty offensive, but at least 3 of the 4 of them also have good bulk, even though they don't have reliable recovery. So I would love to get a Wish Passer onto my team. If it has Heal Bell, then great. I'm also would really like something with the ability to pass momentum, so some sort of U-turn, Volt Switch, Baton Pass. Something with Defog would be really nice because I don't have any hazard removal up to this point on my team. And yeah, so I'm with my 5th round pick looking at something like Togekiss, but Togekiss does get sniped part of the way through the 5th round. So I have to give up a little bit of utility, but I do decide to go with Candy, my Sylveon, making his return, or I guess her return. It'll probably be a female. Candy is a weird name for a boy, but no judgment if that's what you like to call yourself. But I have to sacrifice a little bit of the utility from something like Togekiss, but in exchange I do get a really nice special attack stat that I can combo with a pixelated boosted Hyper Voice. So it's got 108 base power, hits harder than anything that Togekiss has. Togekiss just has Dazzling Gleam at base 80. And even though its special attack stat is a little bit higher, Sylveon just hits so hard. And Hyper Voice is great because it also ignores substitutes and things like that. So yeah, Sylveon's going to be really nice to support the rest of the Pokemon that I have. And even though it doesn't have Defog or like Nasty Plot or things, it does still have Baton Pass, which I can use to make Sylveon a bulky pivot. And the fact that it's actually a little slow is kind of nice because I have 4 Pokemon that are all relatively fast. Like Landorus without any speed investment is going to end up being pretty slow. But having these, starting to set up my speed tiers is going to be really nice. I want a good distribution of my speeds to prevent my opponents from being able to run Adamant or Modest Natures. I want them to be forced into Jolly and Timid Natures, so that way they don't hit as hard. And a good way to do that is to have good distribution amongst your speed tiers. So Sylveon gives us something that's a little bit in the slower range, and that's quite nice. So because I couldn't get a Defogger with this pick, I really needed a Rapid Spinner with my next 1 or 2 picks, and so we do go with Jessica Alba, or Serena, with the next pick. And Serena's quite nice. It doesn't have like an amazing move pool. It does get like a High Jump Kick, Play Rough, and I guess the strongest grass move that it gets is Trop Kick, which is for some reason in the like unusable moves or the useless moves, but it's the best grass stab that it has. But it does get U-turn, it gets Synthesis, and it gets Aromatherapy, so it's quite nifty. Plus it gets Rapid Spin. That's the number 1 reason that I wanted to draft it. I wanted something that can spin away hazards for Victini and for Weavile. So it's going to be quite useful, and this thing is just really bulky. These are obviously great defensive stats, even if its HP stat isn't the best. It gives me a good ground resist, which outside of my Landorus I did not have on the team. And I don't think I end up picking up another ground resist out the rest of the draft. But that is why I picked Serena, and it's great to have another Pokemon with momentum options. So right now I have 5 out of 6 Pokemon that have momentum options. So that's awesome. I never have that much momentum on my teams, it seems like. But now that I have Serena, the next Pokemon that I really want to get, you'll see here is Leonardo, my Blastoise. And I haven't used Mega Blastoise since the Orange League, which is the first league that I was ever in. I inherited a team that wasn't all that amazing. It did have Mega Blastoise, and Mega Blastoise did get a bunch of kills in that league. So I'm excited to try and use it again. Again, as you know, for the Rapid Spin option, which is really useful, but just as a nice offensive water type, because this Mega Launcher ability just gives it stab boost on pretty much any, like, all of its useful coverage moves, like Aura Sphere, Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse. Well, there's another one that I was thinking of, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But, oh, and is it Flash Cannon? Does Flash Cannon get a boost? I don't think it does. It probably ought to, right? Like the pulse moves, but whatever. If it doesn't, then not a big deal. And then Blastoise obviously has the ability to be very bulky as well, because these defensive stats are just awesome. 120 and 115 there, as you can see. So with my 2 Rapid Spinners, I have some good removal options to support my Victini and my Weavile. And it's true that I don't have a defogger, and that could be a problem versus ghost types. I think that Blastoise has the ability to beat most spin blockers, because it does have access to this stab Dark Pulse, which is quite nice. So I'll be very, keenly aware of what my opponent's options are for setting up hazards and preventing removal and things like that. Blastoise is going to be really pivotal in making sure that we can keep the field safe for our friends from the first round. Next up, I decided to go with the Godzilla, the Goodra, because I wanted a Dragon type, and I wanted something that was like really specially bulky, and I already had Sylveon, but Goodra is just really nice. It's a really great electric resist, a great fire resist, and yeah, it's just got an amazing move pool. Bolt Beam, Flamethrower. It's even got good physical options as well, and it's got a pretty decent speed tier at base 80. Yeah, there's not a whole lot more to say about Goodra. I've never used it, but I think pure Dragon typing is just really awesome, because it has so many good resists. Like, again, it resists like water, grass, fire, electric. I think those are the key ones that I really wanted. And usually, like, when you draft a Dragon type, it often has like a secondary typing that makes it vulnerable to other Pokemon. Like the Lotties have the secondary Psychic typing, which make them easy to Pursuit Trap. Garchomp and Salamence and Zygarde all have that secondary typing that makes them 4 times weak to Ice, therefore very easy to revenge kill. But Goodra is just a tank, and I'm looking forward to this thing putting in work. And there's a lot of good sets that Goodra has. Like Assault Vest is the #1 set that I think that you see with most Goodras, but you can run curse sets, you can run like other physical sets like Choice Band and things like that. And I'm looking forward to using some of those less seen sets. Goodra does provide, like I said, a good electric resist, and that combos nicely with my Landorus, which is immune to electric type moves, but they're both a little vulnerable to ice type attacks. And just so far in general, I feel like, well, I don't think I'm vulnerable to ice types by any means, but just like electric types in general could be a nuisance. And that's what's led me to draft Iroquois, my Steelix. Another Pokemon that's coming back from my past. It was on my team in PMC Season 2. Of course, that was Mega Steelix. Now we're just using regular Steelix, which doesn't have quite as good of a special defense stat. But, it's not a big deal. Still hits a reasonable amount once you invest into it. But yeah, this in combination with Goodra and Landorus really makes me solid against electric types, because Steelix is not weak to ice, and like most electric types are going to be running the electric move plus HP ice. And then I could have gotten with a Pokemon like Seismitoad or something like that, which isn't going to be weak to ice either, but I think most electric types that are really threatening in the format, like the Thundies, Tapu Koko, Xurkitree, they all get grasp coverage, and so they could still very easily just run electric move plus the grass move plus HP Ice and sort of rip through my team. But it's not going to be that easy now with Steelix being on my team. It's true that it does share a water weakness with Landorus, but not a lot of electric types get good water coverage. You know, they mostly get like the grass coverage, maybe they get fire coverage or something like that. But even if they do choose to run HP Water, then they're going to be walled by Goodra. So I feel really secure against electric types, and just trying to prevent getting abused by Volt Switch is going to be really important to me. So at this point in the draft, we've taken 9 Pokemon so far, and we're left with 8 points. All of these Pokemon up to this point are now 112 points spent. So I want to get as close to 12 Pokemon as I can, and I'm looking at what's available, and there's a few ways that I can go about that. So the first thing that I wanted to get was Whirlipede, and it is a little bit of a meme pick. It's a little goofy, and I'll fully admit I thought that Whirlipede got Baton Pass, like its older brother Scolipede, but it doesn't. So that was a little bit of a mistake on my part, but Whirlipede does still get Spikes, Toxic Spikes, and Endeavor. So those give me some really good hazard stacking options. If my opponent doesn't have very many hazard removers, I can easily bring this thing 1 week, bring it with a Focus Sash, and just try and set up as many layers as possible, and then punish something with Endeavor. So that'll be quite nice. It's funny, like, because this thing does not have Baton Pass, I think that Venipede is actually better, the pre-evolution, because it has a little bit of extra speed versus Whirlipede. Whirlipede's obviously quite slow. And this bulk that Whirlipede has doesn't really matter, because I bet you're going to run it with a Focus Sash most of the time. I guess you could run it with Eviolite, but I don't think that's the best option. We'll see how it goes. If I do get the chance to bring Whirlipede, I'll figure out at the time what's going to be best. Or if I drop Whirlipede before I get too far into the season, that's fine too. One thing I am lacking on my team at this point is an electric type, so I'm trying to see what electric types are available for cheap. And Electro definitely caught my eye. We're calling this thing Nitro because this thing has blistering speed. 150 is going to be hitting 438 with a speed boosting nature. And there's nothing in the draft that can outspeed this that was drafted. Like the fastest Pokemon that were drafted in our conference were Tapu Koko and Aerodactyl, both coming in at base 130. And if I'm not mistaken, so we even outspeed those things with a modest nature. So that is quite nice. Like we don't ever have to run, Timid. With the Pokemon that are in our that have been drafted. I guess we'll run Timid if we need to outspeed a Scarfer. But that's the other great thing. Like Electro is going to be forcing certain Pokemon to run Choice Scarf if they're vulnerable to electric types. So sort of crippling prep in that way is really nifty. Other than that, this thing doesn't really get any really great coverage to write home about. It gets Signal Beam. And I think that's really the only usable coverage that it gets outside of electric, and also, of course, HP Ice. But, I like having fast Pokemon. Having fast Pokemon is quite nice, even if this thing doesn't hit the hardest. You give it a Life Orb, if it is Zap Plate, it doesn't matter all too much. But, this Pokemon was only 4 points. Whirlipede was only 2 points, so that was a total of 6. We are now down to a final of 2 points with 1 Pokemon left to go. And I decided I wanted Lickitung. And the reason I wanted Lickitung was because I wanted another Wish Passer. Again, I don't have very many Pokemon on my team that have any sort of recovery. I think Serena is the only one. So having a Pokemon that can pass wishes into them is really nice. And, that takes a little bit of pressure off of Sylveon to be the only Wish Passer that's on the team that could free up Sylveon to be run more offensively if I need in a given week, where I need both a Wish Passer and a offensive Fairy type. Other than that, Lickitung is just kind of fat and annoying. Normal typing is actually pretty solid defensively. And then when you combine it with its pretty decent defensive stats and the ability to run Eviolite, Lickitung could be a problem for certain teams that are not packing a hard-hitting fighting type. As I've learned in the past, dealing with Pokemon like Porygon 2 and Umbreon and things like that. Like, you really need super effective stab to hit Pokemon like Lickitung. So this thing can, kind of sit in front of certain Pokemon that don't have Substitute. If a Pokemon has Substitute and it has a HP stat that's greater than 100, we could have a problem because Seismic will not break the sub. But I'm definitely aware of that, and I won't allow myself to be set up on if I'm bringing a Lickitung to a certain week. You know, it gets decent enough coverage. It actually gets great coverage, I would say. It gets Volt Beam on both the physical and special side. It gets fire coverage. It gets fighting coverage. It gets phasing with Dragon Tail. I don't think it gets Roar or anything like that, does it? Or Whirlwind? No, but it does get Dragon Tail, so we'll see. It doesn't have the best attack stats in the world. There's no doubt about that. But we'll make it work. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my team. This ended up taking a little bit longer than I had thought. I was trying to do this pretty quickly, and in fact, I've actually already recorded this once, but I wanted to redo it to try and make it a little faster, and it doesn't look like I succeeded. But I'm really looking forward to using this team. There's a lot of fun mons, especially like these first 4. I think are going to be really amazing. I'm excited for Blastoise and Goodra, and even like Lickitung I'm pretty excited for. So we're going to try and make some noise this season in the UBC, and I hope you guys are looking forward to it. If you are, make sure you check back to my channel for other gaming and Pokemon content. And until the next time, I will see you guys later.